It's like for not so good terms, man, prime time seems to be the hot topic. So I think we got to do a deep dive on that conversation and then dissect everything, man.
I mean, we can deep dive into it. The sad part is, I don't think has anything to do with the culture. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, right. All right, man. Episode 39. What you got?
Hey, man, I'll be honest with you, brother. I struck out. I'll let you have it, though. I know you got one
I
for us.
mean, the few that I know, Larry Zonka is the top one I got.
Yeah, I ain't want to steal your thunder.
I'm pretty sure the folks will fact check me on this, but I think Steven Jackson used to play running back for the Rams, was 39. Willie Parker, 39 for the Steelers. But yeah, look, hey, that's all I got. But
Yeah,
here,
nothing popped into my brain when you said that. So
yeah. We here, episode 39. That's the most important piece. We
yeah, that's right.
still
That's all that matters.
want to give a shout out to Appliance Medic, our sponsor. Want to start with that. The cold season is here, so make sure you get that heating and cooling checked out. Phase Consulting Partners. Um, they're here for all of your small business or company of any size, really. Your portfolio management, project management, learning and development needs. Be sure to get both of those on iPhone and Android. What's good with you, man?
Another day, man. Another day in the life. Hey, it's a lot of big news out there today.
A lot, a lot. I mean, we'll get into it. I want to jump into Brittany Griner in a second, but did you agree with the playoff, the top four?
Mm,
I know which one you think they left off. I know you.
I mean, it's cool. We still got some. Um, I mean, given what they had to deal with, right? Like, they did the best they could.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, this strengthens the talk for an expanded playoff
Yep.
because every year somebody's going to be left off, right?
Oh yeah. It was hilarious to me that before they made the announcement, actually the night before they made the announcement, they did a little interview with Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you wind back some years back when he was solidified, he was in the Final Four, probably had the best team at that time. Um, he was against expanding the playoffs. So fast forward, team got two losses. He's having to do a little bit of campaign to get in, and my man was like, I did some soul searching. I'm all for expansion. I think we should go to 12 teams.
Absolutely,
And
exactly.
he even started speaking my language. X. He was like, so when you talk about the best teams, I'm gonna let you guys talk me into it. He said, if my team was to play all the other teams, probably except for Georgia, would we be favored over those teams? And it was like, yeah. He said, then I don't need to make the argument if Alabama should be in the top four. Then I was like, come on, coach.
Hey, man, I mean, you got a point though.
He got a point. He got a
You got a
point.
point though. Hey, look, we can beat all these dudes. So what's the problem?
Yeah, yeah.
All
I
right,
mean, listen,
I understand it.
strong argument. Strong
Yeah,
argument.
Clemson got the same argument.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, we can beat three of these teams for sure.
Right, right. But
But guess
the
what?
thing is, I think we got a good deck, man. I'm ready to see the playoffs. Not ready to make any predictions or any bets yet, but still looking at the injuries. But I'll be in the game. I'll be
I know you would. I
yeah.
know you would. I'm excited to watch it myself. I just
Oh
want
yeah,
to see somebody other than Alabama and Clemson.
yeah.
Um, I'll tell you one thing though. Georgia has to be the heavy favorite right now. Has to be.
Surprisingly, man, I'll tell you, it's only 7 points
I mean, it's
over
heavy enough.
Ohio State.
It's heavy enough.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Like, here's what the networks want. I'm telling you directly what the networks want. They didn't want to organically, well, they didn't want to orchestrate the rematch immediately, meaning Ohio State and Georgia and Ohio State and Michigan. So they put Michigan at 2, Ohio State at 4, which means the 2 and 3 would play, and then 1 and 4 would play.
Right.
But
They set them up for the championship game. Right.
if organically with that being one of the biggest rivalries we have in all of sports, man, those networks will go crazy if they get that game as the championship game.
I mean, that's the plan. That's the goal, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because obviously Georgia's going to mollywop those other two teams, right? So you had to give somebody a shot at Georgia first.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
you potentially, right? And there's another way to look at it, right? You potentially give both of those teams
Mm-hmm.
a shot at Georgia, right?
Yep.
So I mean, it's gonna work out no matter what. But
I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
no, yeah. Too bad. Was it January 7th, something like that?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So
Cool.
I'm here for it, man. Let's get it in. Let's
Yep.
do it.
Oh man, looks like we got a special guest coming through.
I'm sorry, fellas.
You good, man? We were just talking about see, we had an agreement on the Final Four that made it to the playoffs. What's your opinion on that?
I think that was 100% the four that I would have chosen. I mean, when you think about Ohio State and Michigan were 2 and 3 when they meet at Ohio Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
The game was close for 3 quarters. I think the only reason the game got out of hand was Ohio State not being in that position very often, and with the stakes being so high, they started to kind of push and panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they let it get away from them in the end. But I don't think that the game was what they end up losing by 20 points, but I don't think it was a 20-point game. I think it was more of a one-score game that Ohio State was pressing at the end. And because they were taking more chances at the end, Michigan was able to get some cheap points.
What I can't get out of my mind, though, Marcus, is that every time I kept looking at that screen, I saw a Michigan player running for over 50 yards to the end zone. And they ran like 250 yards in the second half.
Michigan's running back, their new running back adds a different dimension. Yeah. The Corum is not a home run hitter, right? He gonna hit the hole. Mm-hmm. He gonna get your yards. He's not gonna take it 50.
Right.
That I don't know if they were expecting what they got that in that backup, and his name escapes me right now, but I don't think that they were expecting what they got from him.
I got a really close friend of mine. He calls me, man, he's an older guy. And he's like, man, what do you think about the matchup? You think we got a shot against Georgia? I said, you got a shot. If they change the rules and let you guys play with 15 to 16 players on defense, you got a shot.
I'm going to disagree with you there, though.
You got a shot.
I think, here's what I say. I think that Michigan is so hungry. Like, Georgia's kids are going to come into it. This is a big team, Big Ten team, slow Big Ten. They ain't played nobody. When SEC teams play other teams in other conference, the respect factor goes down a little bit. And I think Michigan is going to come into it like, hey, and that's assuming Georgia gets past Ohio State. And another thing with Ohio State, Georgia is not going to find another team just as talented as they are or Alabama is besides Ohio State. It's those three teams are on another level talent-wise. Yeah. So if they get past Ohio State going to soften them up. And then I think Michigan will get past TCU. And I think Michigan has a chance to win the national championship.
So, yeah, we just talked about this, right? And so I was telling Eric before you jumped in, I was saying that they had set this up to where both teams, Michigan and Ohio State, could potentially get a shot at Georgia. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. So one of them can learn from the other on how to beat this team, right? But when you look at it holistically, Georgia has to be a heavy favorite. And Eric said 7 points, which is heavy enough for me. Yeah. But I'm just saying.
I don't know about
they did a great job with the setup, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. You couldn't match up Michigan and Ohio State in the first round. I don't care if they say they didn't do it because of that. There's no way you can put that game again. And also, you always get these blowouts in the semifinal historically since they started this playoff.
I'm betting on one this time. I'm betting.
I don't think.
I mean,
Georgia,
there should be at least one. Yeah, there'll probably be at least one.
I don't think Georgia blows out Ohio State, but I do think there's a chance Michigan blows out TCU.
That's the one.
Because Michigan's just as well coached as TCU.
Yeah.
With
I like that. I'm not big,
better athletes.
I'm not big on Michigan's quarterback though. I think if I had to rank all the quarterbacks, he would be third ahead of Georgia's quarterback. Georgia's quarterback is the worst quarterback out of all the quarterbacks left.
But Dart is getting better. Not Dart. What's his name? McCarthy.
McCarthy, yeah.
He's getting better every time he goes. Because I thought Jim Harbaugh was crazy changing quarterbacks at the beginning of the season. I was like, this other guy took you to the playoffs last year. He's not spectacular, but he's steady.
Yeah.
But then it was just like he continued to get better every week.
Great.
Get a little bit better every week. And I think by the time the bowl game comes around, another month of him practicing, because you remember he's splitting reps in the preseason, splitting reps in the spring.
Yep.
Now he's taking all the reps.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be interesting.
Is he as good as Ohio State's QB? No,
he's not.
No. I mean, that guy's Heisman worthy. He'll be, I don't think he'll win, but he's there, right?
What concerns me about Ohio State, man, this is, we've been watching football for a long time, college football. This is the softest Ohio State team I've ever seen.
And I don't understand.
On both sides of the ball.
And I don't understand why, because if you go back on rivals.com and you look at recruiting rankings, they are consistently the top 3 in talent.
Yeah.
So it's got to be either Day is looking for something different than Urban was as far as the edge on players, even though they're just as talented, or how's he coaching them, right?
Oh.
Like, in practice, is he putting them in those situations where he's going to test their,
Yeah.
So for me, I'm gonna say this: when it comes to 5-star recruits, right, being recruited at both schools, right, but the difference between Ohio State and Alabama, Georgia, the SEC, and the Big Ten, right, is Big Ten coaching is geared towards Big Ten opponents.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. SEC coaching is geared toward SEC opponents. Wow. And what made Urban Meyer successful in Ohio State is because he came from the SEC.
I see both of them.
Right. Yeah. And so therefore, when he came to the Big Ten, he continued to recruit SEC caliber players. And he also was in a position to inform those players or coach those players to play against SEC schools.
Yep. Right. I agree.
I'm gonna take a slight dig here on Urban Meyer too. Urban Meyer did allow some criminals to come in the locker room, and he was accepted. I'm just throwing it out there.
I have always said, to have a good football team,
gotta have some arrests.
You gotta have a couple.
Gotta have one or two, man.
You gotta have a couple to set that tone.
They just don't care.
You look back at Miami and Florida State when they were rolling.
Yeah. You look at that Florida team that
Urban Florida team.
Hersey beat up the offensive coordinator. Never got suspended.
The
Pouncey brothers. Hernandez.
All kinds of stuff.
Cam Newton. Don't forget Cam.
Cam stealing laptop.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. If I talk to my uncle about Cam, he because he's a Carolina fan, right?
Oh,
Cam can do no wrong. I'm like, dude, like Cam.
So man, I know. Listen, I'm gonna keep you up to date. I'm gonna come be transparent when I put the money down and let y'all know which way I go. But we'll we'll be talking about college football, but before we move on to the main topic here, I want to give a shout out to Brittany Griner getting man, it's long overdue, right? I mean, this thing. How many days was it?
292.
292. Yeah, man.
Let me say something because I'm big into the political world,
Yep.
but I'm big in the sports world, right? And so I look at this stuff every single day. I would like, especially progressive folks, to understand that I think Joe Biden is the only president that would have made this swap since I was born. I don't think any other president would have made this swap. I think he should get a lot of credit for that because they kidnapped Brittany Griner. They didn't arrest Brittany Griner. They kidnapped Brittany Griner as political leverage against the United States.
Yep.
That's what they did. It had nothing to do with some little cartridge she had, right? And other presidents would have been like, no, we're not going to let this merchant of death or whatever they call him out.
Right.
Especially, and I'll just go ahead and say it, for a Black person, especially for a member of the LGBTQ community, right?
Yeah.
And especially when they had to leave Paul Whelan over there, right? So Joe Biden, I feel like, is the only president that would have went. The others would have been like, we're trying hard. We're talking to them every day. We can't let this guy go. Look what he's done. So I think we need to give credit where credit is due. Yes, it took longer than most people would have liked, but that's because Russia doesn't like us.
So I'm glad you said that, right? And so I have a different perspective on this situation, right? I'm happy she's home. I'm happy it worked out. All that's great, right? Congratulations to her family. I'm sure she will enjoy being in the United States again and live life and love it.
Around this time of year too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
However, I don't know. I'm not an expert on Russian law, but I do know that what's allowed in the United States is not allowed in Russia.
Yeah.
Right. With that being said, regardless of how small the amount was, if it's illegal, it's illegal. Right.
Well,
and you can't take your U.S. perspective on law into somebody else's house and expect them to conform to your rules.
Well,
right?
we're all arrogant Americans, right? We think the world revolves around us and we can go wherever we want and we're taking our ideals with us. And that's the totally wrong perspective. If I went to a Russia or China, you better believe I would be going on P's and Q's.
Because if you check the website, find out what's going on in that country before you walk in.
Our jail is bad, their jail is different.
Yeah.
I also blame Brittany Griner's attorneys and agents because U.S. intelligence knew that Russia was going to attack Ukraine, right? They allowed her and some other women's basketball players to go there and start the season. A responsible agent would have said, hey, BG, I know you want this, whatever they're paying you, but you might want to sit out this season.
Yeah.
That was a money grab on their representatives' part. They should not have, because I feel like, she shouldn't have had what she had. She shouldn't have had what she had. But I saw there was a case where another woman from another country last year got arrested for the same thing. And she was like in jail, she got put in jail for 2 months and released. You know what I'm saying? Like this was, but here's the thing, but she was used as political leverage. And I think any other administration would have let her sit there. That's just my feeling on the matter. They would have let her rot in jail because we don't negotiate with terrorists, and we're not going to let Russia tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And so she should get down on her knees and pray. If she believes in a higher power, she should really, because she would still be there under any other administration. I guarantee it.
And I hope she takes this time to she learned from this experience, right? And use this time to reflect, take some personal accountability, right?
Yep.
Yes, she did all these things, right? But I hope she understands her part in what has happened to her, and use that to hopefully try and prevent it from happening to someone else.
I think
but it starts internally, though.
Her example, though, I think we all should look at what happened to her and what's going on in China with their zero COVID policy and the lockdowns and things like that. What's going on in Qatar with random people getting arrested for different things, and then their government's having to get them out. Our country is by far, it's not perfect.
Right.
We got a long way to go, right? But I wouldn't go live anywhere else.
Right. I'm with you.
Like I wouldn't I wouldn't go anywhere else.
I mean, big picture, you have to understand that when you go into a foreign country that is not the United States, right? You have to, I'm gonna say walk on eggshells, but you have to be very knowledgeable of that country's relationship with the United States, right?
Yep.
And how that could work against you.
Yep.
In any situation. I encourage anybody that's going overseas to travel, visit, whatever it is, visit the website, State Department website, understand what that means, understand that relationship, right?
Yep.
Know where the embassy is in the event you need it, right? Then conduct yourself accordingly.
Yep.
Right. Don't go over there with this, I'm an American, oh, it's just a little bit, they're not gonna bother me. Because as you see, the smallest infraction could get you 9 years.
Yep.
Right? Just be aware. That's all that's it. Just be aware.
Yep.
Yeah, so shout out.
Now I have a question for y'all, and we might need we probably should have invited a female perspective into this discussion, because some people are going to say, well, she shouldn't have been over there in the first place. And if the WNBA paid players, then that wouldn't have happened, and she wouldn't have needed to be in Russia.
I mean, I get it, but I get it.
Hey man, so me and Eric talked about this thing, and you bring that up right on the heels of the US men's soccer team getting 13 million for winning against Iran, I think, and then having to send 6.5 of that to the women's team, right? And so when you look at that agreement that they have, right, and you think about that on, say, a NBA level, right? Could the NBA end up splitting revenue 50-50 with the WNBA so that it's fair and balanced in the eyes of some?
Never happened.
And why not? Right? Charles Barkley spoke on this. Charles Barkley said that the NBA gets revenue from the networks.
Yeah.
That's where money's coming from. The WNBA does not have those contracts with the networks. He also said that the WNBA only plays 40 games, right? Where the NBA is over 100 when you include the playoffs, right? So all that matters, right? And do you really think, how would NBA players
ain't gonna give up that bag?
No. I mean, there's a disproportionate amount of people. Like, the gap is wide between what LeBron gets paid and the 12th guy that's sitting on the Hornets bench, what he gets paid. And
LeBron ain't sharing half his bag.
No, the NBA players aren't giving up any money.
I
They
don't
are
care what
not
they
doing
make.
it.
It ain't gonna
But
be half or nothing.
I think the difference with the men's and women's national team is people thought USA Soccer was one entity when it's actually two entities, right? And it's two, they had two collective bargaining agreements, right? I think because our men's soccer team performs so poorly relative to the women had a, let's be frank, a great PR team.
They got more leverage too.
Yeah. And so if you look at it, if the men's soccer team would not have agreed to basically surrender half of their winnings, then there's no way USA Soccer could have paid the women. I think the men should get, and I'm not turning this into man versus woman thing, but I think people should give the men some credit because the USA Soccer would not have been able to put that money up, right? They would have had to ask the government, hey, can you give us this amount of money to match whatever the men make? I don't think it was USA Soccer leadership said we're going to intentionally screw the women. USA Soccer leadership was looking at, hey, FIFA only gives this amount of money, and this is all we can afford to pay within budget. I don't think it was a nefarious, hey, we're going to pay women less. But I do think the men's soccer team should be given a lot of credit. Now, I wouldn't give them too much credit because a lot of those men's soccer players play in Europe and make a crap ton of money playing professionally in Europe. Those soccer players make a lot of money, whereas the women's soccer players, their pro leagues don't pay hardly anything. So I think the men looked at it like, all right, we can make our money kind of like pro athletes here in the United States. And where the women don't have that opportunity. As far as the WNBA goes, now, I don't know why the NBA isn't more transparent with the books, because who was it? It was the point guard for Las Vegas who said she doesn't think that she's not trying to get paid what a comparable NBA point guard would get paid.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
She just wants an equal revenue share split.
Right.
And my response to her would be, we have to look in the books and see what your operating expenses are. Because if you're playing in a pro arena, you've got to pay for those, I guess if they have a 40 game schedule, those 20 home games, you got to pay the cost to provide that arena. And it might be so expensive to provide the operating costs, right, that you might not be able to have that percentage because your pie is smaller.
Right.
You have to also look at when you talk about the books, right? You have to talk about income coming in, right?
Yep.
So nobody's paying NBA prices for WNBA games.
Right. That's why they should open up the books.
But I mean, yeah, but then you're gonna also see the disparity in that price, right? And even if the WNBA tried to match NBA pricing, they're not getting the same interest from the consumer on that level, right? So therefore, your income that you're bringing in is less, but yet your output is still the same as the NBA. When you look at it, right? Potentially,
it's a young league. They're only 25 years old. Women have only had Title IX since the 70s. So if you looking at it, folks our mom's age, they really wasn't into sports. They never really played sports back in the day, right? So women are just now where it's a critical mass of sports fans willing to, go 2 games, pay 4 games. They've got to, women have to support the WNBA, right? If it's on, I put a message on Facebook one time. I was like, I'm watching the WNBA game. Hell, my dad calls me all the time. Hey, you watching this so-and-so game on, he's like, because he thinks that when he was coaching ball, he said he got the best sets and plays from watching women's basketball.
That's dope.
He said he got the best plays from watching women's basketball because they actually run plays. It's not about, a pick and roll, isolate somebody, whatever, right? But you have to drive up that viewership. There's only a few people like my dad and me, right? That's only a few people. So if they got to drive up the viewership where women are also watching those sports. And, let's be honest too, like the LGBTQ community needs to do more to support the WNBA because
makes up a good part of the league.
There's a big population of those players that are a member of the LGBTQ community, and they're the most, like, as far as being out there to represent their group, they are unapologetic about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think those type of constituency groups have to step up to support that product if they want it to continue to grow.
I agree. It'd be interesting to see how this, as we get more spectacle type athletes into the league and see how that changes things. I'm seeing more girls dunking down and all that. But and man, let's jump into this main topic real quick, man. Talk about prime time. So we try to cue this up. So Prime was there how many years?
3
years. I think
2 calendar years, 3 seasons.
3 seasons, yeah. He delivered on his promise. He said he wanted to put HBCUs on the map, particularly Jackson State. He didn't use these words, but I think what he was trying to say is he wanted to show the blueprint of what's possible in the HBCU. We saw more games on ESPN. I think we got to see more talent in HBCUs as a whole. Game day came there. Man, celebrities came out the wazoo. So that's all the good, right? They went undefeated. Got a bowl game coming up. Marcus, they play North Carolina Central. So we get to see Mookie Collier.
Mookie Collier versus Jackson State.
Yeah, so get to see that. Jackson State's favored by 16, by the way. All right, check the spread on that. So that's all the good, right? And then we'll get into some of the bad here, but the backlash that's take place with him going over to Colorado has been kind of puzzling to me, man. Like, I don't want to say I completely disagree with everybody's take, but I think it's worth us kind of discussing it. So with me kind of queuing it up that way, I'm going to punt it over to you guys first to see what kind of thoughts you have, and you guys, whichever one, just grab the mic and jump into it. Mark is on mute. All right, go ahead.
So my feelings have evolved since Saturday.
Okay.
I've softened a little bit on this topic because at first I was really upset. I thought it was really unfair how they was treating Deion. Excuse me for a second.
So I'll say this. When
I don't care.
I don't necessarily I don't Deion's brought great value to Jackson State, right? He did a lot. For Jackson State as a whole. He did a lot for HBCUs as a whole. He did a lot for the SWAC, all that, right? But when you look at what's available to him, right? And then you look at Deion is a competitor, always has been, always will be. I don't care what he's doing. He can, I promise you, want to line up next to him right now to watch you run faster than he will challenge you with all 8 toes. Yep. All right. So when you give him an opportunity or provide him an opportunity like Colorado did, right? Not to mention the pay raise, not to mention the opportunity to bring other coaches with him, open that pipeline, right? Get them into mainstream PWI football and all that kind of stuff, right? I think he got the head coach out of another SWAC team, right? That was
got a
making
head coach of Kent State. Head coach of Kent State.
$100,000 as a coach. Come on, man. $100,000 as a head coach is your annual salary. You can make
so
a meal.
What I heard though,
he's an assistant.
What I heard, he got 3, but he donated 150 of it back to the school
to finish the facility. Yes,
that's the facilities. Yeah,
right. So at this point, right, he's reached the pinnacle of the SWAC. Right, he won a championship. He won the SWAC conference championship last year. He went undefeated this year. Won the SWAC championship again. Right. Where does as a competitor, right? Where does your motivation come from to continue? Do you keep winning until you can't win no more, or do you challenge yourself to go elsewhere and do the same?
So what I have learned over the last couple of days, and I went to an event yesterday and I talked to a couple of really smart dudes that also graduated from HBCUs. One of them played baseball, the other one played football. Mm-hmm. And then, most of my family, really, except for me and my brother, like most of my family went to HBCU, not only Bluefield State, but like family in North Carolina with Winston-Salem State and, all of that, right? HBCU graduates, I feel like they're a family, right? Like they have a special connection to their schools and the culture around their school. And they cannot fathom, and I say they because I did not go to HBCU, right? Like they cannot fathom anything better than life at an HBCU surrounded by people who look like you, not having to do any code switching, not having to be anyone else but who you are, right? What could be better than that? Add on to the fact that traditionally HBCU coaches, I don't think it's that they didn't want to go to PWIs, but they were never given the opportunity to have a pathway to go to a PWI. So they put that out of their mind and they concentrated on being in that insular environment, right? And so when Deion comes in there and he does his thing, right? And now he says you get terminated or elevated. Well, elevated is a trigger word for HBCU graduates because they're like, what do you mean? You think our school is lesser than this PWI in Colorado? Our school's not lesser. Why we as Black people got to refer to our schools as lesser? Why are you talking about elevated? And Deion's not talking about the school and the experience and the environment, but objectively, the level of football in the SWAC is not comparable to Division 1A and definitely not comparable to the bowl championship, the bowl subdivision level, right? And yes, he used language, talked about, God sent him to, and I think people really thought that he was there for the long haul. But they also have to think about football fans in general are resistant to change, right? SWAC doesn't participate in the FCS playoffs, right? They give their rights to the Celebration Bowl instead of competing for a championship. That's a barrier, right? How many HBCUs have said, like Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina and Old Dominion, hey, we're going to challenge our stuff. We're going to go FBS, right? We're going to try to compete at the highest level. I've not heard of any of them talk about doing that. And like X said, Deion is a competitor, right? He wants to test himself against Nick Saban. He wants to test himself against Kirby Smart, against Lincoln Riley, right? And if you're an all-time, I mean, Deion is probably one of the top 10 football players of all time. I mean, if you think about, he's number one at corner. Who would you take above him as a corner, right? He's a competitor.
Yeah.
He wants to test himself. Now, let's talk about one more thing. I'm going to talk about one more thing before I shut up. His first game he coached at Jackson State, the locker room was broken into and all his stuff got stolen. He's documented, he's talked about it online. His son and his car both got broken into, right? They promised him a bonus for a percentage out of every ticket if they sold above 30,000 in the stadium. He said that the stadium was full, and then he goes to look at the receipts. They only counted 28,000. They were bathing in a pool at a hotel during the water crisis in Jackson. He paid to bring in ice and stuff like that. We've already talked about he gave half of his salary that was already not on par, right, back to the school to build the locker room. He leveraged his relationships with was it Delta or American Airlines so that Jackson State could fly to games. He got Walmart to build a new field. Like, what'd you say?
Don't forget Under Armour sponsorship.
I feel like that dude jumped in, took the warts and all. And this ain't a guy. He's been a pro player since the 80s. He's not used to a lot of that, right? So we think of these these athletes or these public figures as objects. You got to think about it from Deion and his family's point of view. I'm not even sure it was Deion that wanted to move to Colorado. It might have been his fiance. It might have been Shador, right? Like, them kids ain't used to living like that.
And Marcus, let me walk you guys through this. So this is before he even coached or stepped on the sidelines of Jackson State. I know for sure he had conversations. I don't know if he had official interviews. He had conversations with powerhouse schools. They didn't name who they were, but he had conversations, right? The feedback that he got back from those folks and to his people is that they needed him to prove himself.
Yep.
Okay, so we go to Jackson State. He gives a speech. God sent him there and all that. And he delivers on everything. Probably over-deliver, right? And then also sacrificed a lot.
And quicker than people thought that he would.
Right. So for those people, Bomani Jones included, that are focusing on the fact that God delivered him there and he left in the middle of the dream and all that, my issue with that is if I line up 20 of those people, how long is enough? Is it 6 years? Is it 20 years? Is he supposed to stay there 30 years? Like, how long is enough, right?
And
that's the first thing.
They don't realize, like, we think of Deion as that 28-year-old guy returning punts.
Right.
Deion is 55 years old.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't go after this dream now, it's going to be different at 60, different at 65, right? Right now, he's still young enough where he can still credibly, like, be in there dancing with the kids and doing that. If you 65 and you still doing that, like, it's going to come across as a little different. So he got to strike.
Yeah. And Marcus, I get it for people that want to say, well, for me, I think he's shown the blueprint. It may not look like Deion and how he did it, because you can't be Deion. You're not Prime, right?
Right.
Prime's going to show up. People are going to gravitate to just him showing up off of what he's done in the past. But he's now shown the recipe of what's possible and the blueprint. Now, if people would stop for a second and stop posting, which I hate the most, people posting and talking crazy stuff about stuff that don't even matter. If you would just stop for a second and look at it on the other side of the coin, um, can you guys name a black head coach that's won a championship in college football?
You can barely name one that's coached.
So, with that, if Dion is the first, and I'm not saying at all, like you guys remember how you felt when Obama first became president, right? I'm not saying I'm not trying to equate the two. I'm just trying to get you to understand the feeling that if Dion is standing up there hoisting that trophy as a black coach and he does it at Colorado, like, come on, man. Like this, you people got to look at what's possible.
Who
And they're
doesn't
looking at,
want
well,
to?
he's leaving us and all this and that. I'm like, come on, man. These are the same folk that they expect, the same people that they trash and post about on Facebook. They expect the government that is largely white. They expect that dollar to come in to save them. But guess what? They ain't coming to save you. So guess what? What you got and your ability and what you got to go figure it out. They
You're
ain't
a
coming to save
competitor.
you.
Like you played ball in college, right? Like we played against each other on the playground, right? In the center, like competing, right? When you're a competitor, it's not only on the court or the field, it's also in life, right? Deion is showing an example, is an example of not resting on your laurels. He could have sit back, did commercials, counted his money, but he went and tried to do something different and great, and he's succeeding. I mean, take yourself, right? Like you could chill, you got your PMP, you could be a project manager, make buku money, hang out, but you've tried to do all these other ventures to make yourself better, to be an example to your family and the community of how you can take it further and push boundaries, right? That's what Deion is showing. Deion is showing they told him he didn't have the experience. He went and got the experience, exceeded expectations. Then, instead of Auburn giving him a job or Florida State last year giving him a job, he said Colorado is probably the worst Power 5 team in the nation, and they're the only one giving him an opportunity. He accepted the challenge, right? Could he fail? 99% of coaches in the NCAA fail, right? But so it's a possibility he could fail. But I admire the dude because he could have chilled in Jackson State another couple of years and waited for an Auburn come open again or something like that. He said, no, I'm going to
Selfish
take the
reasons.
hard job.
Marcus, for selfish reasons, I'd love to see him.
Yeah. Hey, so there's another piece of this too, right? You got to also look at the right. Everyone is big on stocks and getting in and getting out at the right time, right? The dude's stock can't be no higher than what it is right now.
So high,
right? Like you back-to-back champion, like which means it wasn't a fluke. You didn't get lucky. You got these 5-star recruits leaving these PWIs and coming to Jackson State, right? Coming to HBCUs, right? So you already opened that window, opened that door, right? You now have an opportunity to go to Colorado, right? And bring those 5 stars into Colorado.
Yeah.
Right? Like the opportunity you got at Colorado for whatever reason. I mean, it could have been Florida State. It could have been anywhere. I don't think people would have been happy no matter where he went to because he's leaving.
I agree.
Jackson. So no matter where he go, they're gonna be upset.
The transfer portal makes this so much easier for him too, man. Because I just saw today there's a running back. It don't matter if it's the 5th string running back from Alabama. The fact there's a running back willing to transfer from Alabama go play.
He was a 5-star. The running back was a 5-star, and he said, can I come?" And I'm sitting there like he ain't even got the recruit. They're recruiting him, right? Like I just think now, like I said, you feel terrible for the fans of Jackson State. I know Marshall had our starting quarterback last year, started 2 years, freshman, sophomore year, transferred to Virginia Tech. And he was supposed to be with us for 2 more years. I was sad, right? Like I was disappointed. I didn't really want him to win many games this year. But because I think if he was still there, we would have had a storybook season. But objectively, playing in ACC for Virginia Tech when they start playing that Sandman, I could see it. You know what I'm saying? Like I can see it. I mean, objectively, that doesn't devalue my degree that he wanted to go to Virginia Tech, right? And so I think when HBCUs have taken such a hit with not getting the appropriate funding, with a lot of times being in environments that doesn't allow them to kind of represent the best of what they could be at schools. They've had problem with accreditation. Like they've had so many obstacles. It felt like Jackson State and Deion Sanders being as visible and as positive as they were was kind of that thing that they really could focus on. You know what I'm saying? They could really look at that as a beacon. And I enjoyed watching it too. I mean, I hadn't watched many HBCU games, and I was turning to it on ESPN, right? So I feel for him, but I don't think that you have to call Deion. The worst thing you can call a black man is a sellout. Right. Like that cuts. It might not be a swear word, but when people call you a sellout, that cuts you. You know what I'm saying?
I felt like I was constantly a part of it because I followed Deion on Instagram and TikTok, man. And like I stayed in his locker room. I'm always in his office. You know what I'm saying? I'm seeing everything that's happened behind the scenes. But on the lighthearted side, when he says play me my theme music, it's gonna hit a little different in Colorado than at Jackson State.
It depends on what the locker room looks like. No,
it depends on who's playing it. They got a tape somewhere. That's cool.
He ain't gonna be playing my hitter.
Yeah.
At Colorado.
Hey, put the tape on the loudspeaker, man. That'll be great.
Right.
I had this band come out here trying to play that song.
I'm gonna give y'all the visual. Here's gonna be the funny part. You know, in any locker room, you got the suits that's gonna be like, you know what I mean by the suits. The suits gonna be standing around the perimeter locker room, and when that music come on, you talk about that look of discomfort. Oh, bruh.
Yeah, that's my cue to exit. Excuse me one time.
Yeah.
And you know the players are gonna be hype, right? I mean, look, when I would watch those videos, I'd be like, man, I think I could play a couple plays.
Right. You want to be a part of that.
Right. It's like when you see Jump Around at Wisconsin, or you hear Sandman at Tech, or Clemson starts walking down, touching the rock. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like when Deion said, play me my theme music, it's like, man, come on.
Ready to jump through the screen. Yeah.
Come on.
And that's what I'm saying. I hope that he keeps that same feeling that goes to Colorado, man, because it made me feel good watching the look on those players' faces, man. You could tell they felt like they was really a part of something. Like, you're part of a team, you're part of something, right? But when you're a part of that, that's a whole different level, a different experience right there.
Bigger, man. I hope he like I want him to do well, right? I hope he doesn't get out here. And obviously you expect him to do way better than 1-11, right? But I want him to reach the championship level he reached as a professional in the NFL and as a coach at Jackson State. Like, continue to exemplify that excellence, right? And do great things. That way, looking back at this, you won't say, well, you should have stayed at Jackson State.
Right.
And I feel like also it's such a shining example to those athletes that a lot of times athletes are looked at as just there to play ball, not really care about their education, not really thinking about after that last whistle blows or horn sounds, right? And they can look at a person like Deion, who defies every stereotype. You can be Brad. I grew up loving Deion Sanders. I loved his brashness. I loved his flash. He was doing things and acting like I didn't dare to be because I knew my dad would smack me, right? Like, Eric, he would have. He would have. Look, I got in trouble. My dad grabbed me up in the locker room when I was in ninth grade because I was in garbage time. I went up for a layup and did the whole take the ball behind your back and lay it up. He grabbed me up in the locker room. You would have thought that I shot somebody the way he grabbed me up. I couldn't do that stuff, and Deion was doing it. But then you look and you hear people talk about Deion, how hard he worked in practice, even though he was flashy, how he studied. We saw the flash and the character that he made up. We never saw what he was doing on the back end.
Right.
And I think that's a shining example to athletes that, hey, you can be you, but you can also do the work and don't let anybody tell you any different. It's a shining example to fans that, hey, these kids might have a different culture and a different way of acting than you, but they can be doing this in the background. Like, you can take so many lessons and people can learn so much just from a game. And isn't that what sports is about, right?
It's about, man. I tell you what, one thing I refuse to do, like I'll get into the debate on social media about sports and who's gonna win and who's better and all that, but I refuse.
And hate you can do all that LeBron hating.
Yeah, I refuse to participate in this debate of did Deion leave too early? He's a sellout. I'm not even going back and forth with people on that, man. Like,
I hate calling people like, that's the one thing that, like, if there's one thing that we as Black folks do to each other that drives me nuts is when we start throwing around sellout. Like all Black people, like, we get mad if white people say all Black people look alike or act alike. But then we do the same thing by insinuating because you act differently than that you're not Black, right? Like because when I went to high school, my grandmother and my dad would grab me up. I was wearing polos with my shirt tucked in. I wasn't sagging. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't gonna go on in my household. So then you got other people saying, oh, look at him, he blah, 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 right? And we do that to each other. And I just think that we got to understand that just like every other community, there is a broad spectrum. We each bring something different to the table, right? It's like, you remember, what was it? Eddie Griffin had the that movie, and he was the spy. You remember that movie I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then when they went to headquarters and they had one of them, his name was Smart Brother, and then Dave Chappelle was there and he was like the revolutionary, and then they had you know what I'm saying? Like, there was different folks, right? Different roles, different ways to be. And that's what we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, it's not the same. And we can go back home on a holiday and we can all sit around the table, chat it up, right?
Yeah.
And embrace our differences. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the way it works. We I'm definitely gonna be watching Deion, man. I wish him the best, man. And my message to everybody, man, just give him a chance here, man. Let him do his thing, and still support HBCUs. You know what I'm saying? If you was watching games before, watch them again, and that's that. Do we care about the game tonight's game? Raiders versus Rams. Anybody care?
Man, I grew up a Raiders fan. My granddad was a Raiders fan. He became a Raiders fan when Al Davis hired Art Shell. Like, he wasn't really a fan until that, and that just solidified it. But man, my Raiders they like can't get right off life. Yeah. They just can't get right.
Next, you gonna watch Baker Mayfield?
I about to ask you, what's he gonna play? He gonna play tonight?
They said the quarterback, I forget his name, Wofford or his name. I think he's got an injury, so he's game time decision. So it's I think Sean McVay came out and said that Baker has digested the playbook. I question that because he didn't digest the playbook in Cleveland. He didn't digest it in
Do
Carolina.
you all like Baker?
Hey, you know what he did? Digest. He just didn't keep it down. He just didn't keep it down. At some point,
I like, but you know what? People give Baker a hard time. I like Baker.
What do you like about Baker, Mark?
You know why I like Baker? Because Baker had the stone to walk on at Texas Tech, take the job, right? And then when I think who was there at that time? Was coach of the Cardinals there at that time?
Yeah, he was there.
He was there at that time. And then when he wouldn't give him a fair shake to keep it once that Davis Mills or whatever got healthy again, he wanted to demote him again after Baker had a good year as a walk-on without a scholarship. He believed in himself enough to go just show up. He didn't get invited to walk on at Oklahoma. He just showed up and walked in the office and was like, hey, can I, walk on to the football team? And then what'd he do? He took the job at Oklahoma, won the Heisman Trophy.
That's true.
That's about taking your own destiny, having a confidence in yourself to take your destiny into your hands. Has he been a great NFL quarterback? No.
That's where I was going to go.
How about actually, man? So what happened with the NFL?
No,
yeah, that's where I was going to go. That's where I was going to go.
But look, there's busts in the NFL all the time. But to even be in the NFL from being a walk-on at Texas Tech, not even like Texas Tech ain't, yes, they're FBS, but they're not, it ain't like they were Oklahoma. He couldn't even get a scholarship to Texas Tech, and now he's making money playing football in the NFL. So if he did, and here's the thing, people like, he's cocky, he's arrogant. If he wasn't, he would have never walked on at Texas Tech in Oklahoma.
That's true.
That got him there.
So, Marcus, did the commercials bother you at all? Because they bothered me. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, it bothered me. His commercials.
In Cleveland?
Yeah, it bothered me.
Oh, them were great. They were great. They were great.
They were great. They're great commercials, but it bothered me as far as him getting the opportunity for those commercials. It bothered me for that perspective.
He's a former Heisman Trophy winner, and like, I just think he took advantage of the opportunity. Now, it was annoying because they were on.
Yeah, I don't fault him by it. I don't fault. Listen, you're worth what people are willing to pay you. I'm not mad at that. Like, I would accept it too. I'm just saying, at the volume that they were on and the level of play that he was playing,
you would have thought he was Peyton Manning. I get where you're coming from. Yeah. I get where you're coming from.
To be fair, X, as Washington fans, RG3 had his run with his commercials too. So I'm gonna throw him in that boat too.
Yeah, and like you said, right, the quarterback is the face of the franchise, and someone presented him with an opportunity. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna get that check. Yeah. I'm gonna take that check." Now, the commercials were good, they were great. So I think very well. I can still watch them today, right?
Yeah, they still.
However, like you said, his level of play didn't match. There are plenty who could say he should have spent less time filming commercials and more time in the playbook.
But I'm looking at his journey. Like I'm thinking he probably was one of them folks that never thought he would be in that position. Like he done fought. Yeah, it's like somebody walking through the desert. He got the water and he just started drinking it. He couldn't stop. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
But, man, he had a good run.
But you can. I mean, look. If I would like my girls, I could tell them, hey, look what this guy did. Like he believed in himself and overcame every single obstacle. They didn't want him. Kind of like the dude, what's his face from Georgia, right? Stetson Bennett, right? Like they didn't even want him to come back and walk on. Right, you know what I'm saying? They tried to give his job away 10 times. And he had the belief in himself to continue. Because if I done left after I went to JUCO, I ain't coming back.
Hey, look at Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Jalen Hurts, like struggle championship game, get replaced, come back. don't get the starting job, go somewhere else, still make the NFL, and look at you now, right? Hey, just because you I can't do it, I mean I can't do it.
I ride for Jalen Hurts. I do. I think I like those kind of stories because I think it shows the essence of why we have sports and why it's important for kids to play sports or at least be involved in some competitive activity. If it's theater and you got to try out and somebody going to be the lead and somebody going to be the backup, it's important for kids to be in those situations because we all been in professional environments where it ain't supposed to be competition or sports, but every day, if you look to get promoted and move through the ranks, you're competing against your peers.
Right.
And sometimes it's not fair. You might think you're supposed to be next in line for that promotion. But just because you think it doesn't mean that that's actually what's going to happen. And how do you handle yourself afterwards? Do you come out of it and push yourself harder, or do you quit and shut down? Right? That's what sports teaches you. That's why I like those stories. That's why I like Baker Mayfield.
I feel you. All right, man. We're gonna wrap this up. So I want to go check out. I got a bet going on tonight. So I got some Raiders winning tonight.
I'm mad at the Raiders, so I'm not watching them tonight. I'm boycotting.
I'm only watching because I got money on it. That's it.
Boycotting. I might watch Black Adam. I got to give The Rock some money because that gross is looking kind of sad for such a big budget movie. So I'm gonna rent Black.
I feel you. All right, X, take us home, man.
Hey, man, shout out to Marcus for joining us, man. We appreciate you coming on, giving us your take, man. You always welcome to be a guest. We appreciate having you. As always, man, thanks for watching on YouTube. Always join the conversation via the Facebook group. Shout out again to Appliance Medic, Face Consulting Partners for the sponsorship. With that being said, man, till next time, peace.